my God, why real estate makes people lose their freaking minds.
What are you doing?
I lost my mind. That's today's show. Let's dive into it. Hey everyone, welcome to the Investing in Real Estate show. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And I'm losing my mind. So many people freak out and lose their minds around real estate investing. Maybe they're newbies, they're just getting started, and something goes wrong, and oh my gosh, they go down a crazy rabbit hole of fear-mongering and disaster, and the flood is coming.
Stop doing that. You need to calm yourself.
It's not that bad. So that's what we're going to talk about on today's show. We are longtime real estate investors. We've done thousands of deals over the years, and we've seen a lot. We've had a lot of guests here on the show who've seen a lot. A lot of people who have been burned by contractors and property managers, and you name it. It's
physically
happened.
Burned, too.
Really?
The cat.
Oh, right. Check out our episode where we talk about the cat stuck in the furnace. Don't want to miss that. Mm-hmm. So on today's show, Natalie said, look, I want to do an episode about why people lose their minds around real estate investing. So what do you mean?
Well, I was just giving this some thought and talking about it with a friend recently.
A friend who, by the way, has done millions of dollars in real estate deals.
A very seasoned real estate investor. And we were sort of trading stories about the crazy things that people do as real estate investors. Some illegal, some legal, some, violent, some less violent, some aggressive, some passive aggressive. And I thought, oh my gosh, I feel like I had seen a lot. Clayton and I used to be news anchors. So, we've seen a lot in this world. We reported on the state of the world and other crazy stories. But real estate is something that I think because it makes people step out of their comfort zone and take control of their wealth. So when something unexpected happens, a lot of times people think, oh my God, I made a mistake. I should never have done this. And then they go to a crazy place, or what my sister calls a dark place, right?
Right.
And I think that's why you see such extreme reactions to the performance of your real estate investment, whereas your stock portfolio could do something very similar, right? It does every single day. It takes a dive, right? But you never think like, I'm going down to McDonald's and I'm going to tell them what I think of them and because my stock in McDonald's went down. Like people just don't do this in the same way. And I get it. It's because it's a super emotional investment. How many times have I yelled at you because I'm not happy with the performance of some of our homes, right?
She's like, we've got this one's still vacant.
It's been a month. I didn't want this one.
Why you wanted to buy this one? Why, it's like, hold on, let's just get on the phone with the property man. Let's get it all straightened out. And now it's fine. But she goes to a dark place. I go to a dark place sometimes. I think a lot of people go to dark places sometimes. But it's an interesting parallel between what you say, which is the stock market or, other forms of investing where we've seen people lose everything, right? The stock market.
I wonder if there are people who go to Merrill Lynch and be like, I lost everything. I hate you.
Well, remember after the collapse, people certainly did.
Did they go to the investment banks?
Well, look at what happened in Greece. People trying to get money out of their banks, and the banks were like, we don't have your money anymore. And they're like,
right.
What are you talking about? I put my money in this bank, and I'm trying to get money out of said bank, and I can't because you won't give it to me. That's real, right? And with real estate, it actually can't go down to $0 in value ever. Even the house could burn down. The land is still worth something. And hopefully you have insurance on the building so that you would get an insurance check to rebuild it. And so you might be out a number of months of rent, some headaches, of course, having to jump through getting a fire marshal's report and all of that stuff. But still at the very heart of it, you still have an asset, right? It's still a real thing. But people don't flip out, I guess, as much when the stock market takes an ups and down turn, or maybe they do, because if you think about 2008 when everyone lost huge chunks of their 401k, and a lot of people lost most of their retirement because it was tied to the stock market.
It was a collective. We all went crazy. I guess I don't remember the individual stories.
Well, the housing market collapsed. It was an absolute disaster, of course.
So the reason we've decided to do a show like this, because not just to trade fun, salacious stories like cat gets stuck in a furnace, right? And lives. You should listen to that episode now that I've given away the ending.
Now you gave it away.
But, also because you kind of need to check yourself before you become a real estate investor, because the kind of person that I was when we started investing is a very different person than I am now. I feel like I can take these stories a lot better than I could, say, 5 or 10 years ago, because I went directly down that rabbit hole. Like, I thought I was taking control of my investment. When something goes wrong, I think, oh, I shouldn't have done this, right? And that's why you go to a crazy place. So I wanted to share this particularly crazy story about my mother. She used to be a title officer. She worked in escrow and title. And she had one investor client who would always like scream at them and berate them. And he was just like a really violent client. And so one day, in the news, we started to see stories about someone who was sending mail bombs to city officials in the town I grew up in. And my mom, later on, they caught that guy. It ended up being the same guy, the investor, who was like berating my mother on a regular basis. Thankfully, her office and our house never received a mail bomb. But it's just sort of like, that's the kind of story where you're like, these people go crazy.
Did any of the bombs go off? Or were they inert?
To be honest, I don't remember. I don't think so. I think maybe there were some injuries, but not deaths.
Ooh,
it's not, I mean, this is not a fun story, right? The thing is that, like, my mother had already been on the receiving end of this kind of crazy. I don't know if it was the investments per se that made this guy start to, like, abuse city officials. But you can see how there's a certain kind of temperament that can't handle it. Like when you don't get paid on time or you don't get your documents on time, like that stuff happens. I've had once I sold an investment property and I gave them one number off on the routing information and I didn't get that money. It was returned to the bank and then returned to me a week later. But I cried for a week because I was like, that was my entire investment. I don't know where it's gone. You can get extremely emotional about these things and go to a crazy place, right?
I think because there's not a lot of advertising about what we do, right? It's not, you're not going to turn on TV and see advertisements for buying rental real estate. Because really, there's no middleman in the process. You find a property or you work with a team that provides a rental property for you. You work with a property manager and a tenant lives in the property and pays you monthly cash flow. There's not a Merrill Lynch. There's not a Fidelity running constant television commercials to you. So I think people's perception is so jaded. They think that, oh, because Fidelity's on TV all the time, or Charles Schwab or Merrill Lynch or these other financial companies, that they're reputable. That's where I should be putting my money. Really? They're spending millions of dollars to try to get you to become a customer. So if you're a rental investor, you're kind of going out there on your own. You're kind of like Lewis and Clark, trying to figure out your path, right? You could go commercial investing. You could invest in mobile home parks, residential properties. It's kind of up to you to be comfortable with your own path. So then you choose that path, you go down that path, and then something goes wrong. And then, oh my God, what have I done? Honey, you ruined us, and there can be a lot of arguments over money. So you really need to be prepared that when you get involved in rental real estate, that look, something is going to go wrong at some point. Do you go to a dark place or do you fix it? I'm thinking of the story that my sister told us about one of her, she owns a rental property. And what happened there?
Her tenant was trying to skip her electric bill, and instead she ran a power line or an extension cord to the power outlet. I'm not even sure how you actually do that, but it caused a fire because it's extremely dangerous. You should not mess with electricity. And then she has all of these repairs now to pay because her tenant did something pretty awful. She eventually had to evict that tenant, and now she's got to repair what that tenant has done to that house. It's extremely stressful. But I want to say, what do we do when we go to a dark place? A lot of times you get something in your email or a call from a property manager, and your first response is, oh my God, doom and gloom. Why did I do this, right? And so I've sort of learned to do this. I see something and I think to myself, I don't like that. It doesn't mean I'm ruined, right? I don't have to like it. There's nowhere in the real estate investing handbook that says you must like every challenge. You don't have to. So I'll think, okay, let me reverse engineer this math. Okay, I paid this much for this property. So far, I'm ahead in the cash flow maybe, or maybe I haven't cash flowed yet. But if I tack on this extra expense and still calculate the return on investment, maybe that takes me from 10% to 9%. Okay, I'm fine with that, right? Because I don't think I can do that in the stock market. Maybe that takes me from 9 to 8. Still something I can't do in the stock market. Do I want to keep it or do I want to take the loss on my taxes this year and get out of it? Every situation is different. But if you know how to run the numbers, you can prevent yourself from going to a crazy place. Then you can say, okay, this is something that like, I didn't expect this. It will still cash flow. I will do that, right? You have to be able to rationalize your numbers and then you won't go to a crazy place. But you can't say, oh, that means I'll never cash flow. That's almost never the case.
Right.
Or, oh, that means I've lost everything. That also is almost never the case. So then you got to keep your wits about you, because I know what it feels like to go to a dark place. I've been down the dark place. You can see me there if you go there, but you got to be able to pull yourself back.
Right. I mean, it's rental real estate. Stuff is going to happen. We have episodes here where we dive into some problems, things, turbulence that will come up when you are a rental investor. Things are going to happen. A contractor is going to burn you. A property manager might not do what you asked. Like, there are things that will happen. You just need to kind of prepare for it mentally. And don't be that guy. Don't be that person who becomes the scared little mouse, right? And cowers in the
freaking
corner,
out at
freaking out,
everybody about,
yelling at everyone else. No, just, you know what? It's just real estate. You have your health. It's just real estate. Figure out a solution. Work with your property management team. Work with your contracting team. Get it turned around. It's not going to be the end of the day, at the end of the world. And also talk to your accountant, because rental real estate is the #1 tax shelter in the country. So figure out a way then to put this on your taxes, and you're putting your losses out there, and you can actually make it work for you. Here's a lesson. I talked to a friend of mine. He was a real estate investor. He owned a lot of properties in Florida, and hurricane came through. And I said, I hope you were okay. And the hurricane didn't damage any of your properties. He's like, yeah, we got hit pretty hard. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. He said, why? And he's a multimillionaire real estate investor. And he said, why? I said, what do you mean why? Your properties are damaged. He said, no, now they are the ultimate tax shelter. Because now I file FEMA claims, I will file these insurance claims, I will never have to pay taxes on these properties ever again. And I thought that is the sign of an investor who gets it. That's the sign of someone who has maybe years ago gone to a dark place, but now is an elevated level, an advanced investor.
We've had a lot of things that happened to this was a big investment in our properties year. There was we had a couple of years of smooth sailing, and for some reason so many of our properties started to require repairs, evictions, turnovers this year. I guess when it rains it pours. And we actually decided, we took a chunk of them, we're like, let's sell these, right? And so we worked on the process of selling those, and then we got bids for the repair of them, and I pulled back on half of them. I was like, okay, I overreacted. I want them. Let's fix these, sell off a few of the other ones. But a lot of times, we just want you to know we have overreactions all the time. But if you can keep yourself from overreacting, you can get to that place of cash flow. You can.
Absolutely.
That's the lesson of the day, folks.
So let us know in the comments below, have you gone to a dark place? We'd love to hear if you've had any experiences like this and how you managed to get out of it. That's on today's show. And we'll see you back here next time with another episode of Investing in Real Estate. Now go out there, take action, and become a real estate investor, because we believe it's the #1 way to build wealth, even with some of the scary stuff. We'll see you next time.